I wouldn't be surprised if we see a subpoena. The more and more that the SEC gets called out publicly in court, the more motivation it has for the committee to issue a subpoena. As well, Gary Gensler just has been defying the requests from not only Patrick McHenry, but from the House Intelligence Committee, from the House Judiciary Committee. Gary Gensler has been defying Republican leadership in the House.
This content is brought to you by Uphold, which is a great crypto platform that I've been using since 2018. Uphold has all the top cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, and all the altcoins. In fact, they have 260 plus cryptocurrencies on their platform. You can also trade precious metals, stable coins, and 37 fiat currencies. In addition, they are available in over 150 countries. And this platform is fully reserved. They do audits, so you can trust that your funds are safe. No commingling, no lending out your funds. If you'd like to learn more about Uphold, please visit the link in the description. Welcome to the Thinking Crypto podcast, your home for cryptocurrency news and interviews. With me today is Cody Carbone, who's the Vice President of Policy at the Chamber of Digital Commerce. Cody, great to have you back on.
Awesome to be here. I love coming on to talk with you, Tony. I would love to be back every time.
So Cody, lots going on. It was kind of a wild week or week and a half with crypto. But I want to start with a bill that was passed in the House Committee on Energy and Commerce called the Deploying American Blockchains Act of 2023. Tell us about this bill and who's behind it.
Yeah, it's kind of came out of nowhere. So this is a bipartisan bill coming out of the House. This is Congressman Larry Bucshon from Indiana and Congresswoman Lisa Blunt-Rochester from Delaware. Two probably unfamiliar names for the digital asset space. This is their first foray into blockchain legislation. And so what this bill does is it sets up the United States to be the preeminent leader on blockchain technology. It directs the Department of Commerce to really study the technology and figure out how the US can lead and what are the different use cases for blockchain, probably that we may not talk about a lot, but outside of the financial services space. Where can blockchain be used for healthcare, for supply chain, for digital identity? So a really awesome bill to come out of House Energy and Commerce, and it moved 46-0. So a bipartisan bill that got unanimous support. So this is a nice little win before the end of the year.
Yeah, to your point, it came out of nowhere because I didn't hear about this. And then I'm like, wait, what? Bipartisan 46-0 in passing. So where does this bill go next? And does it dovetail with the two other bills in the House, the FIT and as well as the stablecoin bill?
So a little backstory about this bill too. So Congressman Bucshon, he had about a 25-page supply chain bill. And at the very end of that supply chain bill, it was this little section, and it was about blockchain leadership in the United States. And there was such a call from blockchain leaders in the space, like, hey, this should be a standalone bill. Like, this is really important, and this deserves its own title and its own consideration on the House floor. And it was great to see Congresswoman Blunt-Rochester sign on to that. I have to give a shout out to Michael Cameron, a staffer on the Energy and Commerce Committee, who really put behind the effort to move this bill forward. And so where does this go next? It's a great question. I'm hoping that it gets a vote on the House floor. It will likely be a 2024 exercise, given that this is the last week. Congress is in session in DC, and they've got some other priorities to tackle, which I know we'll get to. As how it relates to the other digital asset bills, the FIT bill, that market structure bill, the stablecoin bill, it doesn't. And so this is a unique opportunity to move legislation that's different from those financial services bills, but also ties in to the digital asset space. So this is a completely standalone effort. I'm hoping it moves in a package of some other House Energy and Commerce bills this year, and will finally put the US on the right path to lead on blockchain. I mean, I can complain about this for hours, but we're losing the blockchain battle internationally. Right now, China holds 84% of all blockchain patent applications.
Wow.
That's insane when you say that. And so this will put the focus behind research and development to see how the US can lead and leverage blockchain technology. So great bill. I'm excited. And I think it may be a good thing that it's a little bit separate from those digital asset bills that are a little muddied with politics right now.
Oh, sure. The great thing is, like you said, is bipartisan. So forgive my ignorance here. So the bill still has to be voted on in the House to go to the Senate. Is that correct?
That's correct. So all it did right now is it moved through committee. So the committee marked it up, and they just said, you know what, the House Energy and Commerce Committee thinks this is a good bill, and we want to move this to the full House floor. And so it will need to get floor time. It's really hard for standalone legislation to get floor time, as we've seen with the other digital asset bills trying to find that space on the legislative calendar. So this will likely move in a larger package, but hey, 46-0 out of the House Energy and Commerce Committee. It's hard to move anything right now unanimously in Congress. And so seeing that is a good sign for its movement going forward.
Yeah, that's a good sign. Now for the other two bills, I know that like you said, Congress, there's other priorities, lots going on in the world. Do you anticipate, though, those two bills, the FIT and the stablecoin, to be potentially voted on maybe in Q1 of 2024? And does Patrick McHenry's announcement of his retirement affect that in any way?
Fingers crossed, Q1 2024. All signs point forward to Q1 2024. So I'm really targeting the February-March timeframe. Once those appropriations debates and battles are kind of set with, and then the government hopefully is funded, then we can move to other legislative priorities. And everything says, everyone says, including Patrick McHenry and French Hill, Q1 2024. So if you look at some of the appropriations timelines and when they need to fund the government, there's some deadlines in January and February. And so once those are dispensed with, March is when I'm really looking for these bills to move forward. So there's some optimism here. Now, Patrick McHenry's retirement throws things a little bit, throws a wrench in the plans a little bit. But I don't think it should adjust the timeline dramatically. I think the beauty of the retirement, even though we're sad to see him go, it's not until January 2025 when he will leave, so at the end of next year. But he's motivated and he wants to move these bills. These are his babies. And we saw that really come to life when he was trying to get these on some of the must-pass bills that are moving before the end of this calendar year, like the NDAA. He is determined to get a House floor vote on these bills, and they are not going to put these bills on the House floor unless they are completely confident that they have the votes. And I would be very surprised if Patrick McHenry, who's done an excellent job in Congress in building consensus, if he is not able to whip support for these votes. And then you've got the whip himself, Tom Emmer, supporting these. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see these bills, the FIT bill and the Clarity for Payment Stablecoins Act, get a vote and pass the House in March, I would say, is my best bet in 2024. Fingers crossed.
I'm crossing my toes, my fingers right now.
I know it's going to happen. People are going to see this and then they're going to circle on their calendars like March 1st and like, what the heck, Cody? Where are these bills? But be optimistic. I think these move forward. I'm very optimistic myself.
Yeah, man, I'm hoping it can get this through. It'd be really great for the U.S. To get back in the driver's seat, get some things moving here. Now, the other thing, Patrick McHenry has been threatening against SEC Chair Gary Gensler is a subpoena. And we haven't heard much about the SEC race recently, but the debt box case, the judge was threatening a sanction against the SEC lawyers. He had the sub at 121 situation. What's the latest with the SEC? And do you think we might see a subpoena in Q1 as well?
I wouldn't be surprised if we see a subpoena. The more and more that the SEC gets called out publicly in court, the more motivation it has for the committee to issue a subpoena. As well, Gary Gensler just has been defying the requests from not only Patrick McHenry, but from the House Intelligence Committee, from the House Judiciary Committee. Gary Gensler has been defying Republican leadership in the House. And so I think they are ready to issue a subpoena. I don't have any inside information of when that may come. It is always the tool and the weapon of last resort. They do not want to issue a subpoena. They would rather to work collaboratively, even put politics aside. They'd rather work collaboratively with these agencies because they oversee these agencies. So I think it could come, but they will always try to give the SEC as much deference as possible to respond to them and to issue information. Now, what's going on with the SEC is a great question. We saw the debt box comments and the threat of the sanctioning, which was, you can't even, I mean, I wish I could just take the judge's words and just plaster them all over our office. It's not surprising, but it's unfortunate that we're at this point in time with a federal agency that they're going to be lying in court. The SEC also had a enforcement actions against Kraken, so it's just continuing, going. It's like taking all of the exchanges, putting them to the wall, and just throwing something at the wall. It's like, oh, it's today's Kraken's turn. We're going to throw one at this exchange. And so the chamber hopefully will be responding to that case in the new year, issuing another amicus brief. I wouldn't be surprised if the SEC doesn't come out with another enforcement action before the end of the year. I don't know what part of the industry or who it'll be against, but that is usually Gary Gensler's MO. It's when we're all, sitting down, we're comfortable, we've got a drink in our hand, we're about to dive into our Christmas ham, and then you see a notification, new SEC enforcement action at 11:59 on Christmas Eve. That's been his MO, not only at the SEC, but the CFTC. Tries to slip things under the radar, so I wouldn't be surprised by that. SAB 121, I think it's important, and I want to take a moment to just talk about it a little bit, because I think when people saw the GAO ruling that, hey, SAB 121 is a rule, and you issued this as a rule under the guise of accounting guidance, and now Congress has the opportunity to disapprove that rule and to effectively nullify it. A lot of people were hoping after that October 31st GAO ruling, hey, we're going to get this resolution of disapproval quickly. And what that means is we can nullify this. And what that means is that, some of your trusted custodians in the world, like a BNY Mellon, can hold crypto safely for consumers, and they don't have to have another corresponding asset on their balance sheet, which makes it non-feasible. Where is that today? So Congress has 60 legislative days from that GAO ruling to issue or to introduce a resolution of disapproval in both houses. After talking to Patrick McHenry's staff and Cynthia Lummis's staff, who were really the ones who led the effort to get that GAO ruling, they think that they have until September of 2024. Now, I know it's like, how is that possible, 60 legislative days? Well, the legislative calendar is wonky, but there's a unique provision in the House and Senate that says if the timeline, if it spans a calendar year, so because we're going from December 31st, 2023 to 2024, you can tack on 15 extra legislative days to when you have to file it. And so they have 75 legislative days from that October 31st ruling. And because there are so many congressional recesses next year with the election coming up, they believe they have until September 2024 to introduce a resolution of disapproval. Wow. I think that's a little late.
Yeah.
I think they may try to do it earlier than that, because they really want to see if the SEC will proactively rescind this. If the prudential regulators will say, hey, we're not going to enforce this. This is kind of a measure of last resort, again, like the subpoenas for them, but they believe they have the votes to pass a resolution of disapproval. And those offices are confident that the president would sign it. Because why would he waste political capital in vetoing this when the GAO clearly says, hey, this is a rule and it's the will of the people to not want this be a rule. So I think SAB 121, if you're interested in this very wonky topic out there, I think we could see this nullified next year.
Do you think any companies are going to sue the SEC regarding this SAB 121?
Knowing the crypto space, I wouldn't be surprised. Why not go after the SEC again? I think they may. I would advise a company, and this is not legal advice, but if I hypothetically, I would say, why don't we wait until the legislative powers that be kind of work itself out? Because why waste resources if you think that this can be nullified? And the beauty of a resolution of disapproval under the Congressional Review Act is not only does it nullify the rule, it prevents the SEC from issuing a similar rule. So hopefully we can get SAV 121 out of our lives for good in 2024. And so I wouldn't be surprised if there was a lawsuit because it is pretty damning. And it is just nonsensical for this to apply from the SEC to businesses, and it hurts consumers. But I would wait. If I was a company, I would wait to see if Congress can move forward and dispense with this so they don't have to waste their resources.
Oh, sure, yeah. Um, Now Elizabeth Warren and Jamie Dimon. Seems like
Our
Elizabeth
two
Warren is,
favorite people, Tony.
yeah, she's pulling out the big guns now to try to push her narrative. Um, is Jamie's comments having any impact in DC, or are people like, okay, well, you've been saying this since 2017, Jamie, but the industry continues to grow. What are your thoughts on what took place last week? Hi, everyone. Pardon the interruption. I'm Tony Edward, the founder and host of the Thinking Crypto podcast. I have a huge favor to ask you. If you haven't subscribed as yet on YouTube or the podcast platforms, hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button, hit the notification bell on the YouTube platform, and on Spotify or Apple or wherever you get your podcasts, please leave a 5-star rating and review. It supports the podcast. It allows me to bring great quality content to you. Thank you for your support, and I'll let you get back to the content.
I have so many thoughts on Jamie Dimon and Elizabeth Warren. It's so ironic to me that the senator from Massachusetts, who has spent her entire career fighting against big banks,
Yeah,
would use a hearing where she gets one opportunity a year usually to scold them, to push on her own policy priorities and to get the big banks in line. And she uses it to align with them on crypto. Like, wouldn't that say there's something wrong here? But I could go on for that. We could have a whole other podcast just on that. I think what this does, and why this is a bummer. If you're not living in the digital asset world like we are every day, you're seeing this as another headline that all of the papers will glom onto. And it's like when we had the terrorist financing headlines a few months ago, it's like the FTX headlines and all the other market failures. If you're a neutral observer and you don't really know about crypto, you're sitting at home, you're opening your Washington Post or your Wall Street Journal, and you're seeing Jamie Dimon hates crypto or says we should ban it. And you're probably like, oh, it must be bad. And so that's where it always will set us back. And that's what we're constantly fighting against in Washington. It's addressing these misconceptions and taking a lot of these blank slate members of Congress who don't know anything about crypto except the headlines and trying to educate them on the truth and the data and all of the problem-solving capabilities of this technology. That's where it sets us back a little bit. It hurts us. But I think the irony of seeing Elizabeth Warren and Jamie Dimon almost colluding on this has really, one, rubbed people the wrong way and also just like perk people up and be like, wait, what's happening here? Like, I don't know if I want to be on their side of this. This is weird. And so I think it just is another, it's unfortunately another misconception and statement that we're going to have to fight against. It's another thing that will come up in our education meetings. But, Jamie Dimon's been saying the same thing forever while he privately has one of the largest, blockchains in the entire world. And he's allocated a ton of resources towards cryptocurrency and DeFi, but he can continue to say whatever he wants publicly.
Yeah, it's crazy. I was talking about that on a podcast that JP Morgan, they're so involved with crypto and blockchain. They have crypto funds. They're tokenizing on Avalanche. They're doing quite a few things. They were working with Consensus going back since 2018 on Ethereum and much more. Yet he's saying these things, and I don't think, like you're saying, the public is not aware of these details. They just catch the headlines, which is unfortunate.
It's bizarre. It really is bizarre because you just said it really well. I mean, they are allocating tons of resources towards tokenization and towards studying DeFi and digital assets and what the world is because they're listening to consumers. They understand that this is where the market is going and that there is a demand for this. And so it's unfortunate that you have some people in Washington, like Senator Warren, who want to just see it banned because they don't understand the demand. They're not listening to consumers. And you're going to have one of the biggest banks in the world who's capitalizing on that demand, just, agree with her narrative and buy into it. It's very bizarre.
Final item here. I thought it was positive, and it just shows the growth of crypto awareness and adoption. At the GOP presidential debate, crypto came up as a question. Vivek Ramaswamy, he called out Gary Gensler and highlighted the need for crypto regulations. Ron DeSantis touched on it a bit, but it was more on the CBDC side. What are your thoughts on that? And do you see crypto coming up as a question in future debates?
That was cool. That was really cool. I am a presidential nerd. You can see I've got a picture of some presidents right here. I live for this stuff. And if you had asked me, at the start of this campaign season when we had the first debate in August, if I thought, even though I may hope, if I thought that crypto would become a question at one of the presidential debates, I would be like, not this go around. Like asking in the 2028 election, I think definitely because of organizations like ours who are just fighting for it. And we're working with the campaign committees to make sure that digital assets and having position on this is part of all their platforms. But we're here. I think this is like, I think everyone in this industry who has been fighting for years and, since the Satoshi white paper say, okay, we made it, we are relevant. And for me, what it does is when you have detractors in Washington. And it's one thing to say, you know what, I don't like this technology and I think there's, ways to improve it. And I want to fight for consumer protection. I want to fight against illicit finance. Those are people that we can work with. And those are mindsets that we can work with. It's the people who say this shouldn't exist and this is a fad.
Right.
What this does for me, having it at the presidential debate in 2024, and then hopefully this will be on a question for the general debates later next year. It says, we can, those arguments, hopefully they are trite and they are antiquated at this point because it is clearly here. And there's consumer demand. We see that every day. You look at the markets right now. I hopefully, fingers crossed again, crossing fingers and toes, we're heading towards a bull market in 2024. And so I think it was a real inflection point where he said, if you thought this was a fad, no longer. Like this is here, and this needs to be a part of every presidential candidate's campaign platform because they need to have an opinion one way or the other on digital assets and blockchain technology.
Oh, absolutely. I'm excited for 2024. Hopefully these bills come out the House. We see crypto, like you said, in a bull market, more adoption, more awareness, and Congress can act. Fingers and toes.
Man. We're trying, man. We're trying every day. We're trying every day.
Well, look, I mean, I've been here since 2016. So looking back, we've made a lot of progress. As much as, we get annoyed and frustrated, we've made a lot of progress compared to how things were back then. I mean,
and that's why politics aside, if you're watching this debate, I don't care what political party you're in, but you are a supporter of digital assets, whether it's from 2016 or it's from 2023. This should be a celebratory moment when you see it come up at a presidential campaign or presidential debate, because it shows that everything you've been fighting for, and a lot of the time it's been relevancy, and it's to be seen and to be heard and to make sure that people take us seriously, because this is an asset class that has demand from not only the United States public, but global public. This is a celebratory moment to say, okay, it's now being recognized, and it's being recognized from the highest offices in the United States.
And final note here, what's fascinating is we could get a pro Bitcoin or a pro crypto president, because I've seen both candidates on both sides of the aisle put out their agendas. Like, here's how I would regulate. RFK, DeSantis, Vivek, once again, it doesn't matter if you love or hate them, but they're all putting out their agendas. Right.
And it will, and the beauty of that is, and because usually the retort is, well, are one of those three going to win? And but the beauty of it is when you have them put out agendas on cryptocurrency and they make it part of their platforms and they're talking about it, it forces other candidates to talk about it. And it's exactly what we saw at the debate. And so what it will then do is it'll force other candidates to take a position on it and to put it in their platforms. And so I think you're exactly right. I think we very well could have a pro Bitcoin, pro crypto president in 2024. I'm hopeful of that. But I think the best thing of all, and it's something we fight for every day, is clarity. I think we'll have clarity that no matter what, we will know whoever takes the Oval Office starting, January 20th, 2025, we will know their position on cryptocurrency and digital assets. And that all comes from these other candidates putting it in their platforms and forcing other people to talk about it.
Yeah, well said, Cody. Thank you so much, man. Always great insights.
Yeah, man, it's always great being with you. Thanks, Tony. Appreciate it.